Little could have been expected after I released the last video about Banbana, but after it's so many ragged fanatics of this Calaran, that it would be a sin not to record another video on this masterpiece of horror industry. In that past video, I mentioned the imminent release of a new 8th chapter, which eclipsed everything with its release, as could be understood from the same trailer, where you can clearly see how many details were added to the graphics. I did not think that there would be so much asset under the last video, which directly says why not continue, as I release the conveyor, making reviews for each released chapter. In this video, I will go through all the changes of the new episode of Banbanana, finding both good and bad in it, unless, of course, this 8th part consists of everything bad. If this game was so hard to cringe at the first conception, you, before starting, do not forget to go to the Telegram channel, as well as support to show on donation alerts to lavish my extremely unique content, as well as in other things what the game itself is, if at least some Bieber and Boba were responsible for it. The 8th chapter has already been riveted, where, as always, everything continues, having behind it without a tower buffonade, occurring at the end of the introductory part. Banban has long ceased to frighten, because this series of games has not used this skill for a long time. After all, just as we will be shown a terrible moment, where we will have to run away from the monster for pure, blunt moments will talk about themselves, showing nothing more than laughter, with which it is not customary to laugh, at least in a residential and prosperous society. In addition to these geniuses of progress, who created something that will be much scarier to discuss than how to think sensibly about it, to the changes themselves, they also wrote good music that has beats and the rhythm of its sound. And the fact is that it only sounds at the beginning, when you are in the game menu, without pressing the play button, because the exit button was removed without return, as well as the same other from the word completely soundtrack, not playing elsewhere, creating at least some tension. This may be supported when we, playing as the protagonist, see all the events when our main protagonist does not react to the situation. In the literal sense, the father for whom we play does not express a single emotion, and is not, as such a character, acting as the main figure in the story, making their decisions, and learning from their mistakes. This in Poppy Playtime has not yet worked. I'm not talking about this game in which all the characters are bollocks, with labels pasted, do not demonstrate themselves in the plot, showing their character. For slaves only do what they do, that they alternate them, showing one character, then another, not as at the same time, without revealing the main character, for whom it is forced to play, without hearing any words from him. Associations with a protagonist do not arise. If the slaves, the Downs with a mop brain, had such an idea in order to embody it, so that you can feel the events of the game, but it still does not work, if in the final event, where the Banban and his grandfather month with each other, we just watch the fight from the outside, without taking any action that could serve as a game interactive. What Snotty Dog watched several times in a row was such a thought, which does not force the player to take part in a conflict, spinning on the carousel, if such is not a Gelda, or constantly step aside when someone has a facial Zaruba going on. A good game, and even more horror, if such a stunning one is found among the color, to which YouTube figures record their reaction, copying from each other not only previews, then it is considered as something that does not cause much noise, should first of all scare, and secondly, give the player the very will to interact with the world of the game. If you cannot show this already in our usual, this is utter nonsense, and at the moment, I do not evaluate the game itself, but what it offers. And instead of having her speak in front of my eyes with her blanks, giving it as food for thought, with the same success, let her feed me shit, given that I find it in this game at every step in the metaphysical plane, because the game should not take the player aside before such an important event, so that he goes to a corner, to emit his ecstasy in another place, then to find him in a performance in a fight with the boss, in which he is obliged to take part. It's just that I'm also worried about the realization that the slaves, making everything scripted, take away this very possibility of variability from the player, when these assholes are sprayed in stupid doing a task for you to do it, as indicated in the instructions. Moreover, everything is reduced in the new chapter to such an observe that it is scary, even to mark moments where this is really traced. In the game, you will be told to do that, and then that, and this will continue until this Podzalupenna does not end, which will say that the creativity of these cocksuckers warped ended before all the scripts indicated by the game. Do I need to say at all that it would be wrong to create a horror that is poor in its subliminalism, and to limit the player's opportunities, taking away from him the very ability to do everything in his own way? And then, if one such person would be responsible for the development of this long-lasting garbage, it would, of course, not be better, but at least better than the end result. The game will forever force you to do a certain order of action, repeating compare with the same Momo. Only what this game offers you to do is the highest. If this can be denoted by absurd nonsense, you need to curse several times in order to open the same closet with the grandfather of the banana. And this is much more interesting than opening the same game, seeing in it only mayhem, for which you need to press to the side of the road, being a cop. In the first video about this game, I mentioned that the bosses in this franchise are disgusting, who can boast little of their differences from the game, when you consider that these are the bosses of this shithaven, because you just need to do at least not such a call-out as Garten of Banban to create, so the task acquires easy parts to pass it. For the boss of the battle, this is also a scripted order of action, when the battle with them is not even such, because you, in order to overcome this again, will have to run from them again in a new chapter, committing some duties leading you to victory. I will just mention that the fight with the boss is a fight, and if the game does not offer a single battle, then it is also utter shit that fools could not understand under the last video, writing out just the thesis that the bosses are actually just good, without giving in any comparison with other games. Well, or you need to conduct such an experiment with your brain molecules with another special, which just not playing this garbage will be much smarter than you Banbanana fanatics. I have a lot of things skipped evil children who, in addition to the torn brain game, also diverged from their rage even the anus, so much they are not competent, ready to scribble garbage a cloud of comments, not that there is something clever to write. The game also has a small section, although it is very difficult to consider it, as well as in other Banban horror, and not the crap from the world of indie, that once in the location where we meet Javainium Monster, he asks us to recreate Nabnalina, which is like all the love of his life, and, in my mouth I staggered, and not that I wanted, because it is such a shit unformed, in which we need to steam for a few minutes over that, in order to complete the process, creating this monster, you know, the Nabab girl, to make the way you need to sweat more than at the same construction site to work, because the game is a working state in which you will jump on these buttons. Reports. Well, after we complete all the instructions of the Javainium Monster, which is undoubtedly the same script, then this same type is simply eaten by another Eberklacker, who is already one of the bosses, devaluing all the time-consuming requests that we performed before. What can you call it, no matter how fucked up? Provoking the computer to throw away far and for a long time with such a period with which this garbage was developed. This assignment of the Green Man needs to be carried out for a long time, especially without getting something in return, so that all these efforts do not go to welding. As a result, everything came to this and the outcome. To be honest, the same Javainium Monster, which we were presented because of its desire, is a good registered character in contrast to the main bollocks, with whom we have to communicate, or for such a game. However, in the end, the game completely merges it, killing it with a monster, as well as the hope of something good than Banban, as such a game was and remains, because of its original intention to be fucking shit, which it demonstrates. In the new chapter, we are also presented with a new thing, responsible for some kind of showing mechanics. In the 8th chapter, a new remote control was added, responsible for opening something with just a sticker of a certain character that is displayed there. In fact, you need to mix with other icons of monsters, caught for passing, unlocking the doors that will be closed, and after you find the right combination, they will be open. Yes, the choice of words is stupid, just like the game itself, because it demonstrates this stupidity, because the slaves, being fucked up, then their life eventually endowed, created children's mechanics, where you need to mix colors to select the right one. This game shows that it really targets the audience of children, when the slaves, to make it seem like it, create a stupid sir, which was created from under their hands, which is clearly visible. Talking, at the same time, what this whole system is complex, than the principles of how this remote works, as a game element that the player will use. The drone was though not as primitive as this Shnyaga, for which they create instructions, sucking out what is not necessary. For people playing this eblanistic parachute are clearly not children, but YouTubers unless, of course, they are under the layers of skin, just like 100 layers of stupism, impregnating in the same particular and their content. Fuck. I will also mention the fact that this mechanic with character emblems is little used per game, so that it can be fully saturated, but not a few moments, which are full of other riddles, as well as requests come over and serve, bitch. I will not deny that there was a wonderful moment where we avoided the monster, the one that this Javainium Monster ate, helping him however, this escape in a circle is exploited several times, marking in stupid places the buttons of characters that we must charge in order to unlock the exit from the section. Mechanics do not bring anything new, if not only one principle of action to escape the monster, or anywhere else where other possibilities of using it could manifest themselves. And if we assume so, then this game that is arsehole with its ventures, on the contrary, takes away these very opportunities, so that you could not enjoy the gameplay, which is already so little in the same game, as well as in the pure form of the brains of cocksuckers, who created another goddamned chapter of this riveted code worse than Unity. It would be better to return the same drone, even though it was not poorly implemented mechanics. It was some complexity observed in idiots who showed such hardcore in terms of game design. Thanks to this remote control, it is also possible to mix character icons, to open and exit for example, from this Poa Botany, as well as that. Oh, no, I said it right. Not what interest it is jerky nor how to brag. And if it was, it would also be done Vrazrato, like the rest of the representation of what mediocre stripped these are capable of, but only in the creation of color. From which comes the wonder, why in this niche? They did not start making games? Changes and underwent also in terms of voice acting, where the Russian voice Banana did much better than in the same original, although they used the actor responsible for dubbing the main character from his side. Acting out is not that good in general. Again, the lying does not feel like they are trying to carefully hide. It can be seen, if you start comparing the voices, then in the original it will be much worse than they did in the original. Although anyway, it is still bad when the actor, she even plays dubbing disgusted, or he is forced to play like this. Well, and so, it is not bad that the slaves still did not skimp on dubbing for different countries, making the game at least in some aspect frozen than it really is, which undoubtedly I will analyze this in another point. In addition to tumors in the brain, from the emerging schizophrenia, telling them to follow this principle in order to follow their trick traditions, to create a stupid down voice, speaking so not about the character, but the person who stood behind it. Of the advantages, such as these, you can also tell about the graphene ornate in this chapter, allowing you to savor at least a dick without salt, which this asshole should still eat, because, no matter how you look at it, even though the graphics were twisted, however, the characters from other chapters of the game do not fit into the environment, if they have low polygonal textures of plasticine, showing, among other things, what the brains of the same beans and beans consist of. The interior itself, they then changed, but the models did not undergo any tricks that could boast of their elaborate details on the texture, remaining all the same curves and from the first chapter, Banban, as it was such a scrawny game without its unique chip, and it remained, not adding anything attractive in the horror component that could really scare, in addition to all the listed mistakes that I called, after seeing that there are still wretched 2 Morons managed to release, not far off also the 9th and 5th chapters, which in the future will have time to come out, and I will release my opinion on them. Also jogging, as well as with the 8th chapter, has not undergone almost no changes, in addition to the same decor, which is extremely clearly visible, except for the horror component. Well, not for nothing I spent so much time talking about my impressions about the newly released part of this franchise, which develops in small ways, not hiding their mistakes with banal tricks that could be thought of. Well, I will not only find you next time, but also what will be the opportunity to do absurd